Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Gary Lane. Today, Israel now launching ground assaults against Hamas in Gaza, in addition to its airstrikes. The Israeli assaults come and reports Hamas and other groups were using the ceasefire to rebuild their forces and launch another major attack on Israel. Our CBN News conversation with Israeli Ambassador to the United Nations, Danny Danon. We'll hear his warning to Hamas about what more Israel could do if the terrorist group does not release its remaining hostages. And here at home, the battle between the Trump administration and some federal judges over deporting illegal immigrants and other important issues, like cutting the federal workforce and transgenders in the military. And it's a story you likely haven't heard from in the major media about the strong Christian faith of one of the astronauts who finally came home from space this week. Those stories and more today on NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
We begin in the Middle East, where Israeli troops are launching ground assaults against Hamas in Gaza, as the IDF is expanding its operations against the terrorist group. Those attacks come as the Security Cabinet held an emergency meeting to consider signs that Hamas was preparing another October 7th style attack on the Jewish state. CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell brings us that story from Jerusalem.
Israeli troops are rolling back into Gaza, retaking areas they once controlled. IDF Sergeant Major Chaim Mailspin told CBN's Raj Nir Hamas and other terror groups were using the ceasefire to prepare for another invasion of Israel.
Our intelligence gave a very strong indication that during this regrouping time, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Jabhat al-Nusra, etc., wanted to actually do another invasion. Right now, during the ceasefire, this is what our intelligence sources said, use the little time they had during the ceasefire to do another invasion.
The IDF is pleading with civilians to get out of the combat zones.
Yesterday, the Israeli army dropped leaflets asking us to evacuate the area in Beit Hanun.
Israel's defense minister warns that it's going to get worse if the hostages are not freed and Hamas removed from power.
Unless all the Israeli hostages are released and Hamas is expelled from Gaza, Israel will act with forces never before seen. Take the U.S. President's advice, return the hostages and expel Hamas, and other options will be presented to you, including relocating to other places in the world for those who wish. The alternative is utter destruction and devastation.
In Washington, the Trump administration says the new fighting could end right away if Hamas would accept the U.S. proposal to extend the ceasefire begun in January. An administration spokesperson warned the opportunity is still there, but it's closing fast. The State Department says what President Trump wants most is a permanent and real peace between the Israelis and Palestinians.
President Trump is not just wanting a peaceful day or a peaceful week. We have this window of this administration to change the trajectory of what has been decades and decades, coming up on 100 years of carnage that is now unacceptable.
President Trump called on Iran to stop arming the Houthi rebels in Yemen, promising to step up attacks until they are completely annihilated. As to Iran's nuclear program, Trump has reportedly given the regime in Tehran 2 months to negotiate a deal, making sure they don't develop nuclear weapons. The president indicated if this can't be done peacefully, it will have to be done militarily. Iran responded with its own threat.
We will firmly respond to any aggression against our territorial integrity, national security, or interests with full force. There is no question about that.
Chris Mitchell is with us now from Jerusalem. Chris, we'll talk more about Iran in a moment, but first, was Israel's ground attacks against Hamas expected to come this quickly after the airstrikes began?
Well, Gary, we talked to the IDF spokesman just the other day after the initial air attacks on Gaza. He said all options were on the table, and they obviously had a plan in place while the negotiations were going on. And if they didn't actually come to results where they were releasing more hostages. So, yes, I think they had a plan, and they're right now operating in central and southern Gaza. They've taken over part of what's called the Netzarim corridor that divides Gaza Strip into both north and south.
They're also operating in Rafah right now. There's talks of reports of actually bombing going on there right now. So in terms of your question, I think that was expected, maybe not so quickly. But right now we have boots on the ground there in Gaza, and right now it seems like the whole policy has changed. And as Prime Minister Netanyahu said the other day, they will be negotiating under fire, meaning they'll be fighting while negotiations go on if they resume at all.
Chris, I know not many people thought this would actually move into a phase 2, so this really shouldn't be surprising. And we've often talked here on NewsWatch about Hamas using a ceasefire to rebuild. It appears they did just that. Now the IDF says Hamas and other groups were actually planning another invasion. So what do we know about that? Would it have been another October 7th?
Well, believe it or not, it seems like it would be another October 7th, maybe on a much smaller scale, based on how Hamas has been degraded over the last year and a half. That's what our report said. And Chaim Malespin, the IDF sergeant. Also, the other day when we did talk to the IDF international spokesman, he said that that was one of the factors of their preemptive strike against Hamas leadership and against Hamas, because they were planning for another October 7th. They have tried to extract tools, equipment from the tunnels. Believe it or not, they resumed rocket manufacturing, and they also searched for missiles under the rubble. So during this time, the ceasefire, they were restructuring their military and also recruiting more fighters into the fight for another possible October 7th. Hard to believe, Gary, when you think of all the destruction in Gaza and knowing the firepower that Israel has, and yet they continue to try to do what they can to destroy Israel.
Well, we remember Donald Trump threatening Hamas, saying there would be, quote, hell to pay if they didn't release all hostages. And now Israel's foreign minister is warning Hamas of destruction and devastation unless the hostages are released. So how much more can the Israeli forces step up their attacks, Chris?
Well, they're promising they will escalate and intensify. They could put more boots on the ground and really kind of finish the job that started just on October 7th when they began fighting back against Hamas's invasion. Israel Katz, as you said, the defense minister, he's saying remove Hamas, release the hostages, or you're going to face total destruction. Prime Minister Netanyahu said the other day this was only the beginning. And I think the extent of whatever escalation Israel takes will depend on Hamas's response. Right now, they seem intransigent. And so it seems like, they're going to be continuing this and escalating the military operation. And while they're doing this, Gary, they're still warning civilians there to leave combat areas to mitigate or reduce any civilians' casualties there during this operation.
And the Israeli Defense Forces downed a Houthi missile aimed at Israel overnight. So how great is the Houthi threat to Israel?
Well, it is a threat. And, Gary, one of the main topics of conversation during our prayer meeting this morning was, did you hear the alarm? It says many Israelis heard the alarm when the Houthis sent a ballistic missile against Israel. Many people in central and southern Israel heard those alarms and went into their bomb shelters. Many of the bomb shelters are literally built into the apartments here. Some didn't hear the alarm. Some, well, slept through it maybe. But they are a threat, more of a tactical threat, not a strategic threat. No one's expecting the Houthis to invade Israel, and they seem less and less of a threat given the tremendous attacks by the U.S. And I think the region understands, Gary, Trump's really serious. They know he means business, along with his national security team, that they're going to do what they can to eliminate the Houthis as a threat to Israel and the region and global shipping.
Well, not only the Houthis, but President Trump has given Iran basically 2 months to negotiate a deal on its nuclear program or potentially face a military strike. So has Israel been preparing for such an attack?
They've been preparing for about 20 years or more, Gary. It's one of the longest running stories here in the region. The question's when will they attack? Can they succeed? What happens if they don't succeed? What impact on Iran will it have? You know, they eliminated Saddam Hussein's nuclear facility in 1981. They did Assad's in 2007, all part of the Begin doctrine that they won't allow their neighbors to get a weapon, an existential threat to Israel.
Okay, our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell, thanks for your insights, and we'll be looking forward to hearing from you again in the days ahead. Coming up, my conversation with the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations, Danny Danon, about Israel's warnings to Hamas over what will happen if they don't release their hostages. We'll hear what he has to say when we come back.
Introducing a brand new way to start your morning. Get your daily quick start from CBN News. A quick read on the important news of the day delivered right to your inbox. Stay current on breaking news, politics, and entertainment. Discover how God is moving around the world and here at home. Plus, get exclusive stories and daily scripture encouragement just for you. Stay informed. Go to quickstart.news and subscribe today.
As Chris Mitchell reported, additional Israeli strikes in Gaza are likely forthcoming. Appearing on this week's episode of The Global Lane, Israel's ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon, warns Hamas to turn over the remaining hostages it holds, or else.
It is only the beginning. If Hamas will not engage in the negotiations, we will use more power, and we are very serious about it. And I would advise the world to stop with the condemnations. It will not help them. We are committed to bring our boys and girls back home.
A lot of Israelis believe that Prime Minister Netanyahu may be giving up on the hostages. What are your thoughts on that? Is he ready to give up on them? There are probably only about 25, 30 remaining that are alive.
Absolutely not. We are not giving up. We are determined to bring them back home and to eliminate Hamas. Those are the goals of the operation, of the war, and we will achieve those goals. It takes us longer because we have to maneuver among civilians. We are trying to minimize civilian casualties, but we are committed. We will show no mercy on our enemies, and Hamas paid the price, but we are determined to finish the job.
So what is the goal after the job is done, after the war? What does a Gaza look like in the future?
So I want to remind you, Gary, that we left Gaza 2005. And we actually told the Palestinians, go ahead, build your own future. We are not there. We took out the communities, we took out the military bases, we went back and we were on the border. And look what happened. Hamas took over and the people of Gaza suffered and we suffered. But we cannot take chances anymore. So I think for the future, we can say one thing. We will make sure that we will be safe. Regarding the future of the people of Gaza, hopefully they will be able to find a different way to run their lives, maybe to move to somewhere else, but Hamas will not stay there.
President el-Sisi of Egypt came forward with his own proposal for the future of Gaza, $53 billion reconstruction plan, but that would include the Palestinians remaining in Gaza. What does the Israeli government think of that idea? Do you support it? Do you reject it?
Well, it's not the issue of funding. We saw in the past that, billions of dollars were brought into Gaza. And look what happens there. So it's about vision, leadership, values. If we will continue to glorify Hamas, to glorify violence, there will be no future in Gaza. And I think today what we are lacking is leadership that will condemn terrorism among the Palestinians, not only in Gaza, but also in Judea and Samaria. I haven't heard one Palestinian leader condemning the atrocities of October 7th. The murdering, the raping, the kidnapping, not one condemnation coming from the Palestinian Authority or from any Palestinian leader. So one can ask himself what future you have if you don't have a strong leader who is willing to condemn violence.
Yeah, where's Abu Mazen? I mean, he was opposed to Hamas, and look, he hasn't criticized them at all.
Exactly. He had a chance to make the distinction between Hamas and the moderate Palestinians, and he did exactly the opposite. He endorsed the Palestinians. He celebrated October 7th. That's not acceptable.
On to the Houthis in Iran. U.S., as you know, had this airstrike against the Houthis in Yemen, and President Trump followed that, saying, look, if there's another attack from these Houthis, Guess what, Iran, you're accountable for this. There will be dire consequences. What did you think of that reaction from the president?
President Trump is absolutely right. There is no distinction between the Houthis and Iran. They give them the ammunition, they train them, they feed them, they pay them. It's a proxy. You look at their capabilities. Today they have ballistic missiles that can reach Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. They will be able to develop ballistic missiles that can reach Miami and New York. It's only a matter of time. When you look at the UAVs, they have UAVs that can target Israel and Europe. Give them a few more years, those UAVs can reach the shores of the US. So now is the time to make sure that the Houthis will not have those capabilities.
And this is just a ragtag gang in southern Yemen. So they're getting all this from Iran. How did Iran get it?
But don't underestimate those terrorist groups. We learned the lesson on October 7th. When you have a terrorist group hiding behind civilians and somebody is feeding them with technology and ammunition, sometimes it's more dangerous than a state actor.
And the biggest challenge, of course, for Israel and the United States, the whole world, as a matter of fact, is the nuclear development that Iran is undertaking. They're very close. Israel's been warning us. I know your prime minister has been warning the world for years. They're getting closer. They're getting closer. They're very close now. President Trump has said, you know, we cannot stand for a nuclear Iran. So what has to be done to stop them?
We have to block them, either with sanctions or with the military, period. You know, this year we mark the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. And we'll have learned the lessons. When you have a radical leader threatening to destroy nations, you better believe him. And when you look at the regime in Tehran threatening the US and Israel, we believe them. So we are not taking any chances. You know, Israel is a small country with a small military, but we know to punch high. And we will do whatever is necessary to make sure that Iran will not have a nuclear bomb. We believe that it should be the responsibility not only of Israel, but other countries should support us, including the US. But if we will have no choice, we will do whatever is necessary.
Also on this week's episode of The Global Lane, Ambassador Danon discusses the future of Syria and explains why he believes Western nations should be cautious about providing assistance to the new HTS government, and an unprecedented ruling from a court affecting Christians in Pakistan. You can see it all on The Global Lane tonight on the CBN News Channel at 8 Eastern. You can also see it on the CBN News app or on YouTube. Still ahead, here at home, the battle between the White House and some federal judges over deporting illegal immigrants and other issues. We'll have the story for you right after this. President Trump and some congressional Republicans are calling for the impeachment of a judge who intervened in the administration's deportation of Venezuelan immigrants who've been classified as criminals. CBN's Lori Johnson tells us about that and other White House legal battles.
When federal judge James Boasberg ruled the Trump administration should turn around flights carrying alleged gang members being deported to El Salvador, the Trump administration failed to comply. Boasberg is now demanding evidence justifying that decision. While the president claims the judge didn't have the authority to issue that ruling, he says he didn't ignore it.
No, I never did defy a court order.
And you wouldn't in the future?
No, you can't do that. However, we have bad judges. We have very bad judges.
The White House says it will appeal the ruling.
Judge Boasberg is a Democrat activist. He was appointed by Barack Obama. His wife has donated more than $10,000 to Democrats.
Judge Boasberg was originally appointed by George W. Bush and then elevated by Barack Obama. I just feel like I should clear that up.
President Trump called for Boasberg's impeachment. However, Chief Justice John Roberts stated it's long been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreeing with a judicial decision. The call for impeachment is creating a rift among congressional Republicans, with a number dismissing the idea. Nevertheless, Texas Republican Representative Brandon Gill filed articles of impeachment against Boasberg, charging him with abuse of power by using his position to advance political gain.
Well, the very effort, the very thought is unconscionable. The Constitution says that a judge or another official can be impeached for treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. None of those come into play here.
Meanwhile, 3 other judges recently ruled against the Trump administration by ordering the reinstatement of 25,000 federal jobs, blocking the ban on transgender people from military service, and halting the termination of DEI grants.
There is a concerted effort by the far left to judge shop, to pick judges who are clearly acting as partisan activists from the bench in an attempt to derail this president's agenda.
At the same time, some federal judges involved in high-profile political cases are reportedly expressing fear. They worry that emotionally charged online threats and intimidation could develop into real violence against themselves or their family. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Coming up, what you may not have heard about the strong Christian faith of one of those astronauts who finally got home from space on Tuesday. We'll have that story for you when we come back.
Download the CBN News app, 24/7 news from a Christian perspective at home or on the road. One place for all of your news. Breaking news alerts. Set daily prayer goals and pray for news stories. Read the most important news and watch CBN News Channel live. CBN News, because truth matters. Go to cbnnewsapp.com to get the app today.
As was widely reported, 2 astronauts who spent 9 months on the International Space Station finally came back to Earth, thanks to Elon Musk's SpaceX. The capsule splashed down off the Florida coast Tuesday afternoon. Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams undergoing medical evaluations and reuniting with their families. Their 8-day mission extended after problems with their original spacecraft. When asked about the lesson he takes from the experience, Wilmore replied that it all goes back to his faith in Jesus Christ, saying, quote, "He is working out his plan and his purposes for his glory. And however that plays out, I am content because I understand that." Well, that's it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel anytime or online with cbnnews.com. Also, tell us what you think about the stories you've seen by emailing newswatch@cbn.com or talk to us on Facebook, Instagram, and X, which is formerly known as Twitter. We hope you'll join us next time. Have a great day.